In the ever-turbulent world of Port Charles, it takes only one secret, one moment of weakness, to upend years of progress and fracture even the most tentative peace. Brook Lynn Quartermain, always a character straddling the line between passionate devotion and impulsive recklessness, has once again found herself in dangerous emotional territory, this time with stakes that could shatter more than just her own family. What began as justified fury over Lulu Spencer's unexpected and unfiltered revelation to Lois Cerullo has rapidly spiraled into a misguided crusade. At the heart of it all stands Giovanni, Gio, Palmieri, the young man whose entire identity has been thrust into question, and whose emotional landscape now lies in ruins. The revelation at the nurses' ball could not have come at a worse time. It was supposed to be a night of joy, of glamour, of community. But for Gio, it became the night his past exploded. One moment, he was a talented performer basking in the applause of Port Charles's finest, and the next, he was standing in the wings, eavesdropping on a confrontation that exposed the greatest secret of his life: that his biological parents were not who he believed them to be. Not only was he the product of a long-buried liaison between Brook Lynn and Dante Falconeri, but his entire upbringing had been cloaked in falsehoods, truths buried under layers of shame, fear, and misguided protection. And standing at the center of it all was Lulu, the woman who had once been his father's greatest love, and who, in that instant, became the unwitting detonator of a generational time bomb. Brook Lynn's anger was instantaneous and all-consuming. She saw in Lulu not just a woman who had trespassed into her family's secrets, but a threat to the delicate threads she was trying to weave between herself, Dante, and their son. In Gio's anguished eyes, Brook Lynn saw rejection. His emotional withdrawal, his affinity growing toward Lulu instead, only sharpened her need to reclaim control. But what began as a mother's wounded pride quickly darkened into something more dangerous: revenge. Blinded by her desire to punish Lulu, Brook Lynn set her sights not only on her old rival, but on the most vulnerable piece of her enemy's heart, Rocco Falconeri. Brook Lynn knew from whispers in medical archives and half-forgotten conversations with her late cousin Britt that Lulu had once been embroiled in a harrowing surrogacy scandal involving stolen embryos. A long-forgotten chapter in Port Charles history, the incident had been buried beneath the chaos of Britt's eventual downfall, her ties to the twisted machinations of Liesl Albrecht, and her tragic demise. But Brook Lynn had not forgotten. And now, in her hour of wrath, she saw in that scandal the perfect weapon, the means to shatter the illusion of Lulu's moral superiority and expose her hypocrisy in front of her son. Armed with old documents, Brook Lynn began orchestrating a calculated campaign. She reached out to old GH staff who remembered Britt's secrecy. She contacted a former WSB tech who had helped retrieve the original surrogacy files. And slowly, piece by piece, she constructed a dossier that confirmed what only a handful in Port Charles had known: that Britt Westbourne had carried and delivered Rocco, not as a surrogate with consent, but as part of a medical cover-up whose moral implications had been ignored in the chaos that followed. But what Brook Lynn failed to fully understand, or perhaps chose to ignore, was the impact this truth could have on Rocco himself. The boy had always lived in the shadow of broken relationships and fragile truths. First Lulu's coma, then Dante's long absences due to undercover work, and now the crumbling illusion of his origins. Brook Lynn told herself she was revealing the truth in the name of justice, but in reality, she was placing an emotionally volatile teenager at the epicenter of an adult war, one that he never asked to fight. Dante, already reeling from Gio's emotional distance, was blindsided by Brook Lynn's actions. When he discovered her intentions, when he learned that she had not only investigated Lulu's past but planned to weaponize it against their son, his disappointment turned to fury. For Dante, the revelation that Brook Lynn had kept Gio's existence from him for over 2 decades was already a betrayal that fractured trust. But now, to see her use Rocco as collateral damage in a petty vendetta cut even deeper. He warned her, if she destroyed Lulu in Rocco's eyes, she risked destroying him too. But Brook Lynn was unmoved. Her pain, her fear of losing Gio forever, had made her reckless. She couldn't bear to watch her son, now full-grown, gravitate toward the very woman who once tried to erase her from Dante's life. Her plan was simple: detonate the bomb, expose Lulu's secret, and let the fallout turn Rocco against her. Brook Lynn imagined that in the aftermath, Gio would see Lulu not as a savior, but as another flawed adult who had deceived a child. But what she failed to predict was Gio's response. When Gio learned what Brook Lynn had done, when he understood that she had used Rocco as a pawn in a personal feud, he recoiled. The pain in his eyes mirrored that of the night of the nurses' ball. He couldn't believe his mother, the woman he had slowly begun to forgive, would cross such a line. And more importantly, he couldn't stand by and watch his half-brother suffer for secrets he never asked to inherit. For Gio, it wasn't just about choosing between 2 women. It was about integrity. It was about finally doing what none of the adults in his life had done, telling the truth and protecting the innocent. And so, just as Brook Lynn was preparing to unveil her secret in a public confrontation at the Quartermain estate, Gio stepped in. In front of the family, Lois, Dante, Tracy, and even Rocco himself, he calmly recounted what Brook Lynn had planned. He told them everything: the research, the documents, the timing. And then he looked his mother in the eye and asked, "What are you doing to us?" The silence that followed was deafening. Brook Lynn broke down. The rage that had fueled her crusade collapsed under the weight of her son's sorrow. She saw in his face the very thing she had tried to prevent, a wall rising between them. In her attempt to win Gio back, she had nearly driven him away for good. And in her quest to humiliate Lulu, she had only exposed her own fragility. Now, the fallout begins. Rocco, blindsided by the truth, retreats from both Lulu and Dante. He begins questioning everything he believed about his family. Lulu, heartbroken but resilient, refuses to retaliate. Instead, she vows to earn back her son's trust the only way she can, by being transparent, even if it costs her his love for a time. Dante is left with 2 sons emotionally adrift and a co-parent at war with his past. And Brook Lynn, devastated and alienated, must reckon with the reality she created: that sometimes, in trying to save what we love, we destroy it instead. In Port Charles, the line between vengeance and justice is razor thin. And Brook, for all her heart, has just learned how deep those cuts can run.